Episode 2 begins with Prince Zuko having a temper tantrum. He's in his room throwing furniture left, right, and centre. His uncle is telling him that that the diary will turn up. His uncle also tells Prince Zuko that he needs to remember it wasn't a book that led him to the Avatar, but actually himself. It is even mentioned that there isn't too many places where the Avatar can hide. Aang is telling Sokka and Katara that they need to go to Kyoshi Island as it is only a few hours from where they are. Aang hopes that there is something there that can help him with his powers. Sokka tells Katara that they should probably head home now that they have saved Aang from the Fire Nation. Katara doesn't want to leave Aang and instead wants to help him, which her brother isn't too sure about, but he eventually agrees to help. He notices that there is something happening with Katara's bag. There is something moving in there, and when she upends the bag, they find a winged lemur eating their food. Laying alongside the food, Katara finds a scroll. She opens it up and finds a note from Gran. The note mentions that it was hard to hide this from her. Gran didn't want Katara to get hurt by the Fire Nation, but seeing as she is going out into the world, she thinks it's best that she has the scroll. She mentions that Katara is a waterbender and the scroll belongs to her. Before they head to Kyoshi Island, Aang buries his friend. Once Aang says his goodbyes, they all leave on Appa and head to Kyoshi Island, accompanied by the winged lemur. Meanwhile, Prince Zuko and his uncle have arrived at a dock that is controlled by the Fire Nation. Uncle Iroh is trying to taste food available while Prince Zuko is standing by impatiently. Prince Zuko just wants to acquire information that will help aid him in his search for the Avatar. Prince Zuko did not want to ask Commander Zhao for help, and this was because he didn't want anyone to know what they are up to. Aang and company have arrived at Kyoshi Islands and they head straight for the statue of Avatar Kyoshi. When they are checking around the statue for any clues, they are attacked by a group of female warriors. Katara tries to tell them that they are with the Avatar and asks them to stop. The warriors do not believe them, and one of the warriors said that there would have been a sign if that was the case. As soon as she says this, the statue's eyes light up and focus on Aang. Looks like they got their sign. The tribe leader tells Aang and company that it's been a long time since they have had any visitors. She does not believe that Aang is the Avatar. She tries to make excuses and say that it could have been reflections on the statue that they had all saw. Suki tries to plead her case to the leader. The leader tells him that if Aang is the Avatar, no one would know what would happen had they turned them away. The leader decides to let them stay for 48 hours. Sokka is trying to impress Suki. He tells her that he's the leader of his tribe. Suki is unimpressed and asks him how he is protecting his tribe if he is in Kyoshi village. This whole exchange has Aang and Katara giggling in the back. Prince Zuko and General Iroh goes into the office of one of the Fire Nation's commanders and asks for nautical maps. Well, I should say with his impatience, Prince Zuko more likely demanded the maps. This is overheard by Commander Zhao, who doesn't seem to appreciate his tone. General Iroh apologizes for Prince Zuko's attitude and blames it on being at sea for a long time. Commander Zhao agrees to assist them but asks if they can wait until morning to collect the maps. He tells them that he should be able to track down anything they needed by then. Vicky goes to tell Sokka that there is food in the village hall. She does linger a little while as she looks at a half-naked Sokka. Katara is practicing her waterbending and is following the moves illustrated on a scroll that was left by Gran. We can see that her skills have definitely grown since we first saw her trying to waterbend. Aang sees Katara practicing and remarks on her progress. Aang tells her that he is impressed and that she has been picking up quick. Katara invites Aang to practice with her since Aang needs to learn all 4 bending techniques, but Aang declines. When Aang tries to walk away, Katara splashes him with water, which results in a little water fight between the two of them. Aang, Katara, and Sokka are sitting down eating some food. Aang is approached by one of the kids that was watching them. She asks Aang if he actually is an airbender. Aang doesn't answer, but instead shows off some of his airbending skills, which excites her and the other kids. Suki is talking to her leader, and the leader tells Suki that Aang may be entertaining, but he may still be a threat to their village. She believes the sooner they get him off the island, the better. Commander Zhao is speaking to one of his subordinates who tell him that Prince Zuko believes that he has found the Avatar. He tells Commander Zhao that he found this out from Prince Zuko's crew. Sokka is trying to practice his knife throwing skills against some watermelons. Suki arrives and Sokka tries to impress her with his skills. He tells Suki that he can show her how to throw the knives. Suki nods and Sokka throws his knife and hits only one watermelon. Seeing this, Suki takes out her fan and throws it, and she ends up chopping off the tops of 4 watermelons in a row. Sokka is starting to stretch, and Suki sees these motions and thought that Sokka was challenging her to a fight. Suki wastes no time in grabbing Sokka and putting him into a headlock. Aang and Katara are looking through some of the scrolls and books that are held by the village. Aang tells Katara about him training, which wasn't for him to develop his powers, but was actually to keep them under control. Aang believes that even though people almost got hurt during their training sessions, they never said anything. Aang believes that they were all scared of him. Katara sees a passage in one of the books and tells Aang that avatars are incarnations of themselves and that he isn't alone. She also tells him that the answers he needs aren't in the books and that they are actually inside of him. Prince Zuko is on the dock with his uncle and he finds out that Commander Zhao's boat is gone. One of the workers on the dock tells Prince Zuko that Commander Zhao heard about a flying cow heading towards Kyoshi Island. Commander Zhao claims that he is going to investigate. It is at this time that Prince Zuko realizes that Commander Zhao knows about the Avatar. Suki is having a training session with some of the warriors in the village. This is seen by Sokka, who watches through the half-open door. Sokka tries to copy some of their moves, which does not go unnoticed by Suki. She decides to end the training session and begins giving Sokka some one-on-one training. He seems to be picking it up, although there are some minor corrections by Suki. Aang and Katara have gone back to the statue of Avatar Kyoshi and tries to meditate in the hopes that it will help him unlock the Avatar state. The meditation seems to work, and before long he is standing before Avatar Kyoshi. Prince Zuko is talking to his uncle and he tells him that he has been on this journey for 3 years and that right now it feels worse because he is so close. He may finally have a chance to go home and that hope can be a cruel thing. Sokka manages to pin Suki, but it's not long before she manages to roll and pin him back. Suki tells Sokka that you need to turn your opponent's power against them and reflect all their strength. Sokka doesn't seem to believe in himself, which is noticed by Suki, as she tells him that she thinks that he is a real warrior. The village leader has snuck up on the training room that Sokka and Suki are in and listens in on their conversation. She hears Suki tell Sokka that she always wondered what the world outside would be like. Suddenly, the bell goes off and Suki tells Sokka that someone is coming. Hearing the bell, Katara tries to break Aang out of his meditation. She looks to the bank and sees the Fire Nation's boats. She tries again to break Aang out of his meditation, but there is no response from Aang. At this time, Aang is still speaking to Avatar Kyoshi. She tells Aang why he needs to learn the other bending skills and that the Avatar state gives Aang the strength of over 1,000 benders. Having arrived at Kyoshi Island, Prince Zuko is in a rush to get to the island and find the Avatar. His uncle tells him not to rush and points out that Aang may not be in the village but may instead be elsewhere. He draws Prince Zuko's attention to the statue of Avatar Kyoshi. Commander Zhao has made his way to the village and approaches the village leader. Commander Zhao tells her that he wants to look for outsiders and plans for his people to check the village. She tells him that the only outsiders there are them but appears to allow them to look around. As soon as they approach the leader and her warriors, the leader grabs one of the Fire Nation soldiers and so the fight begins. Aang is still in the Avatar state and Katara is unable to wake him. She instead decides to make sure that he is safe. Katara decides to head down to the path to make sure that no one gets to Aang while he is still speaking to Avatar Kyoshi. Avatar Kyoshi shows Aang a vision of what would happen if Aang fails to become the Avatar and keep people safe. She tells him that if he fails, that another nation could be wiped out. Suki and Sokka are fighting together against the Fire Nation. Even Momo tries to get involved in the action in his own way. The village leader has taken out quite a few of the Fire Nation soldiers, and we can see that Suki and Sokka are a great team and fight together in sync against the Fire Nation. After fighting some of the Fire Nation soldiers, the village leader Suki and Sokka take cover behind one of the buildings. The leader asks Sokka where his friend is, as they may need Aang's help. When Zuko comes across Katara, he tells her that he is going to get through one way or another regardless, and that what happens next depends on her. Somehow being aware of what is currently happening, Avatar Kyoshi tells Aang that he has put his friends and the islands in danger. Prince Zuko and Katara are having a fight. Katara falls and has a flashback to when the Fire Nation visited her village and her mother was killed. Prince Zuko is standing in front of Katara with a flame ready to set free, however she is saved by Avatar Kyoshi, who has temporarily taken over Aang's body. Prince Zuko tries to fight Avatar Kyoshi but is ultimately thrown back. Commander Zhao is making his way towards the village leader. His people are suddenly thrown back when Avatar Kyoshi lands in the center of the village. Avatar Kyoshi uses combined bending elements in order to grab Commander Zhao's people before ultimately throwing them against the buildings. Commander Zhao tells his people to fall back and head back to the ship. Aware that the battle is over, Avatar Kyoshi gives Aang back his body. Vicky tells Aang and the gang that they need to leave. The Fire Nation doesn't really want anything to do with the village, but they would come back in order to get the Avatar if he stays. Before they leave the village, the leader and her people bows before Aang. Suki gives Sokka a kiss goodbye along with one of her fans. While flying away from the village, Aang tells Sokka and Katara that he can only channel the avatars at one of their shrines. The next stop on the journey is to go to the Northern Water Tribe, as something is going to happen there that only he can stop. Katara tells Aang that the Northern Water Tribe have the best masters for waterbending and that they can train Aang. Back on the boat, Commander Zhao tries to convince Prince Zuko and his uncle that he was only responding to reports of a disturbance on Kyoshi Island. He tells Prince Zuko if he was more forthcoming, then they might not have had that misunderstanding. Prince Zuko tells Commander Zhao not to tell anyone about the Avatar being back. Commander Zhao agrees, but tries telling Prince Zuko that they should try working together. Prince Zuko was going to decline, but his uncle steps in and says that they look forward to working well together. Once he is alone, Commander Zhao wastes no time in writing to the Fire Nation King and informing him about the Avatar. What a snake. The king reads the note from Commander Zhao and is now aware that the Avatar has returned. That's the end of the recap for Avatar The Last Airbender. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next recap.